Uh, well, the first question I would like to ask you is why did you decide to run for office?
I decided to run for office because I believed changes needed to be made in the state, and
Yeah.
we did not appear to be going in the right direction to make those changes. And the slate of candidates that I saw out there, I didn't believe were going to be the best equipped to make those changes. So that's why I got in.
All right, great. Which issues were you prioritizing?
I was prioritizing affordability and energy, and also industrial and economic expansion and
Yeah.
education and transportation. There was 14 items altogether, but those are the main ones.
All right. All right. Can you tell me more about some of these issues, especially, affordability, for example? Education is something that I really think it's important to. And, we will be covering all the issues. But first, let's go to the affordability question.
Yeah. So affordability, to me, I don't know if you know much about my background, but it's very much an enterprise business background. So I've run government
Yeah.
agencies. I've also run enterprise private agencies or corporations and built them. Affordability for me is something that is very important because even back in the 1990s, when I was a chief of an emergency services organization in one of the Colorado counties, I couldn't live in that
Yeah.
county because I couldn't afford it. I mean, that was 30 years ago, and I couldn't afford to live there. As a county director, I couldn't even afford to live there.
Yeah.
So affordability is something that's been going on for quite a while, but my angle on all of this is to not talk about affordable housing, but instead talk about affordable communities. Because just, peppering a house here, an apartment building there, and another house over there, that doesn't solve the problem when we've got 2.5 million people in the state looking for affordable
Yeah.
housing. So
Yeah.
my background in terms of business and enterprise and growth has it made me realize that when we go to bring investment back into the state of Colorado, part of that investment goes not just to building the new industry coming in, but it also, a piece of that investment needs to also go into building affordable communities, which means
Yeah.
housing assistance for people that want to purchase a house, infrastructure assistance, school and education assistance. All those things need to be part of that investment package that comes in. So right now, I've seen our government put a lot of attention and a lot of time and effort in an affordable house here and an affordable apartment building there, or whatever. Those are all subsidized. That we need to get away from subsidizing housing and get back to a
Yeah.
point where industry can drive affordable communities, which then becomes affordable housing for everybody.
Yeah. All right. All right. Which were your priorities on education?
Well, in education, there's a couple of different levels there. The first one is really on the K through 12 area, and the K through 12. My concern there is again looking back to my experience. I had a lot of people that worked for me over the years in multiple countries, and a lot of those people wanted to come here to work, and some of them I did bring here because I couldn't find
Yeah.
workers in the U.S. to fill my positions. Not all of them, at least. So some people I did actually bring over. And what I noticed is that a lot of people in our Asian communities overseas, in India primarily, and also over in the Philippines and so on, um,
Yeah.
they're working on 5 to 7 days a week work ethics for academics. We don't have that same philosophy here. At the
Yeah.
same time, they work very, very concentrated on core curriculum. And that's where we need to get back to. Our kids need to be very well versed in our core competencies. We need to stop with all of these other social engineering pieces that do not set our kids up for international competitiveness because nobody is immigrating to India, but India is
Yeah.
definitely immigrating to the US, and I can't blame them. But our kids need to have first shot at those jobs. And in K through 12, we're
Yeah.
not preparing them for that. And that's a big problem. So, but there's another entrance in this too now, which is artificial intelligence. So,
Yeah.
when I had engineers making 150 to $200,000 working for me a year, I'm able to replace many of those engineers now with an AI bot for one-tenth the cost. And
Yeah.
that's a problem for our kids not being prepared in school, not just to compete internationally, but to compete against where AI is going to be taking the job market. So my focus on education is to get our kids prepared, and that means get back to core, get back to physical education, get back to arts, get kids back into
Yeah.
collaboration, working on blackboards and whiteboards, and get them out of tablets, get them back to actually doing the skills and not having the skills done in large part for them by technology. So, um, on the college side, uh, higher education to me is, I have a degree. My wife, my girls, they all have degrees. They all have master's degrees. I don't have a master's, but my
Yeah.
rest of my family does. But what I'm seeing right now is education on the higher education side being ridiculously expensive. And as soon as we started with subsidized and unsubsidized student loans, you just watched education do this price wise.
Yeah.
They saw that you could defer the payments and they raised their tuitions and matched it. The University of Colorado, 2002 maybe, 2002, annual or average tuition was $3,300. It's $15,000 now for that same
Yeah.
school. That to me is phenomenally ridiculous. I think I'm not a fan of tenure. I'm not a fan of professors just basically going into a research role and not doing much in the way of
Yeah.
educating kids going forward. I think higher education is spending far too much money and getting way too much government money for what they're charging. Um, and we need to get back to degrees that make a difference. And in my travels, and I've worked in 85 countries over the years. Um, in my travels, I see some of these very interesting models overseas, like 3-year college degrees over in Europe and over in the UK,
Yeah.
for coming out with it. They take away a lot of the French literature and philosophy and all these other core or these other classes, and they focus just on an engineering degree or just on a mathematics degree or just on a sciences degree, and they get done in 3 years with the
Yeah.
same bachelor's degree that we get here. So there's a lot that we need to do with our higher education to make it affordable and make it useful. I mean, I'm having a hard time having kids come out of college with, 100,000 or 200,000 worth of debt for a degree that is marketable at $65,000 a year. That
Yeah.
makes sense to me. So if that, so that's my education position.
Great. What's your position on, jobs and the economy and
Well,
infrastructure? Cool.
so the current administration has made available $18 trillion worth of international investment,
Yeah.
domestic and international investment. You see states like Michigan, a very blue state, that has taken advantage of this, and they've got a lot of money being plowed into chips manufacturing, to batteries, to overall automobile manufacturing.
Yeah.
They've done really well. Colorado's in line for none of that. And Colorado, the Department of Energy is making money available for building nuclear power plants. Colorado's in line for none of that. Um, my view on jobs and industry and industrial growth is that we need to go out and actually build a prospectus for each one of our Colorado counties that makes Colorado a very, very attractive state for investment. Now, keep in mind the timelines here. Imagine that Trump made that money available during his term. Well, he's got 2 years, 2.5 years left in his term right now, roughly.
Yeah.
The governor won't take this office until January, which means 2 years left, and that money is going down every single month by all these other states that are going after that money. So this is going to be a firefight to go get some of that investment to bring back into
Yeah.
Colorado. We have to be able to, those of us that come from a business background, we understand how to go through and raise money. This isn't meeting with the SBA. I've heard some candidates say, I've met with the SBA. Big deal. No, I've had two SBA
Yeah.
loans and 5 small businesses. SBA does not build communities. SBA anchors once a community has an anchor industry to begin with, whether it's agriculture or steel or energy or whatever, small businesses that SBA caters to are the supporting industries that come in after that anchor's there. We don't have those anchors right now. We're losing those anchors in many, many parts of the
Yeah.
state. And that's what we need to get back to again. So when we go chase down that investment, that investment package may be out in La Junta, it may be up in Henderson, it may be in Craig, it may be in Montrose, it may somewhere, it may or may not be within the Denver perimeter. But wherever that ends up coming, we need to be able to make that investment very attractive. And right now,
Yeah.
Colorado's affordability does not make the Denver metro area very attractive for investment. But can you go through and put something together outside in the perimeters of Colorado and still make affordability, have human resources available for job training and job filling, have space available to actually build affordable communities? Yeah,
Yeah.
the answer is yes there, but those are all tied together, and that's one thing that a lot of candidates that don't have any kind of business background don't realize, that affordability is tied to industry investment, which is also tied to
Yeah.
access. So access is your roads, your rail, your airports, all those things are all connected. And so they need to be addressed at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Um, well, what are your views on the environmental policies?
Um, I think they need an awful lot of revision right now. Environmental policy has really made a villain out of the fossil fuel sector.
Yeah.
And in fact, a lot of fossil fuel extraction, um, the good portion of that ends up leaving the environment in better shape than when it came. Now, if you want to, talk about environmental, um, if you look at just one wind tower right now, one wind turbine that we have, it takes
Yeah.
anywhere from 200 to 1,000 tons of concrete just to pour one tower footing. And we need almost 15,000 more of those towers in the state. So worry about that math later. Those towers right now, those blades have been attributed to the deaths right now of a little over 700,000 birds and about 800,000 bats. So
Yeah.
ecologically, we're destroying things with all of that. And they have to be subsidized. So environmentally, those things are very, very dangerous. I think when we look at all the lithium ion batteries we have to create around energy to store that power, so when they make more power than they can use, which is very, very rare, they got to put it somewhere. So we've got to extract all of that out of the ground as well to make all the lithium ion resources to be able to
Yeah.
stabilize that. Now, if you want to go back and talk about things like water when it comes to environmental policy, um, water is obviously a critical problem in Colorado. And are you in Colorado, Lorena, or where are you at?
No, well, I'm based in Spain, but yeah, but I'm focused on American politics. But yeah, I know a little bit about the problems with water in some of the states.
Oh, okay. Okay. Where in Spain are you? Yeah. Where in
I'm
Spain
in the
are you?
Northwest,
Hmm. I spent a fair
on
amount
the
of time in
Northwest.
Madrid and Barcelona. So, um,
That's
but have not
great.
been up in the Northwest. So, yeah, I've been there. And my daughter, one of my daughters actually did some time in Madrid and an immersion program there too. So I love Spain. Um, anyway, energy wise or water wise right now in Colorado, um, something you may or may not be aware of, we're actually facing one of the lowest snowpacks in our mountains that we've ever had in recorded history
Yeah.
this year. And that is a major, major problem for us. So, Colorado, have you been to Colorado before?
No, no.
Okay, so Colorado sits near the center of the U.S. and it has the Rocky
Yeah,
Mountains
I know,
running
I know
all through the
the,
middle.
I know where it is and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of major river basins in the central and western part of the United States actually start in Colorado.
Yeah.
So those the Colorado River comes out of Colorado and feeds down into a big reservoir called Lake Powell, and then it becomes a river that goes down through the Grand Canyon. That's the
Yeah.
Colorado River. And then that goes into Lake Mead. Well, those lakes right now also have hydroelectric dams with them. They're almost at what's called dead pool because they don't have enough water to even power the dam turbines right now. So
Yeah.
So we have a great deal of water conservation problems that we need to deal with right now. And in the states, you have these interstate compacts, which are agreements among states on how a river's water is actually doled out to all the different users up and downstream. And we're very upside down on that right now, to where we don't have we have some water basins that we don't have the rights to touch that water as it leaves the state. So those are all problems that we need to deal with.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um, so environmentally, we've also have a lot of big forest fires here in Colorado,
Yeah.
and that doesn't just destroy the forest, but actually, forest fires are healthy over time. And what those forest fires do is they actually eliminate a lot of the old dead fuel and allow new fuel or new plantings to actually
Yeah.
rise up.
If they are controlled. Yeah. Yeah.
If they, well, even in nature beforehand, nature would
Yeah.
go through and replenish forest by doing that. Well, what we've done now is we have this thing called an urban or a wildlife urban interface, and this wildlife urban interface or wildland urban interface. Since I was a firefighter for 15 years, so I've fought on plenty of forest fires. Um, that interface, it used to be, the town stops right here and all the forest is out there. Well, now the town and the forest are kind of like you don't know where one stops and the other
Yeah.
starts.
Yeah.
So as a result, we have what's called a pine beetle here, and the pine beetle gets into those trees and kills tens of thousands of our trees out there. And normally the forest fires, the natural forest fires, would come through and clear a lot of that out and destroy a lot of that pine beetle killed tree.
Yeah.
Well, now we can't do that. So now we have, you drive through some of our forests in Colorado now, and some of the forests are just brown because the pine beetles have just killed all those trees. But there's houses in there, so you can't do controlled burns. So now you've got all of this
Yeah.
wildland that you can't repair because there's a whole bunch of people living in it now. So there's a lot we need to do in mitigation in that area to be able to get those wildland areas under control. Um, so that they can rejuvenate, so that we can manage disease control. And when those things burn, and then we get a big rain that comes through, half the mountainside washes down into the nearest river or reservoir. So there's a lot of work we need to do. But what's happened in our current state government is they've diverted money away from all of that.
Yeah.
The people in state government right now have done a lot to go after a very Denver metropolitan specific agenda,
Yeah.
and Denver controls 75% of the vote in this state. So, but it's ignored all of our outlying areas as a result.
Yeah. As you mentioned, you were a firefighter. I would like to know if you had like a plan on emergency preparedness.
Well, you have many plans on emergency preparedness, and a lot of that has to do with emergency preparedness, and there's different levels. So there's emergency preparedness for natural disasters, and
Yeah.
there's also emergency prepare, and then it depends on the type of natural disaster. But the emergency preparedness also has to do with ensuring that all of our rural or a lot of our outlying areas are not ignored in that emergency preparedness scheme. So, and that
Yeah.
that goes both off of a firefighting perspective, but also in a medical perspective as well, because the fire departments are usually the first line medical responders out there. And if they don't have the equipment, the training, or the personnel, that becomes a problem. So we need to actually increase, and this ties into some of our healthcare plans. We need to increase our healthcare presence in the rural communities. And one really good way to do that is to actually incorporate some of that healthcare clinician or clinic level training into a lot of our firefighters and EMTs out there in the rural
Yeah.
areas, because that allows them we can extend specialty care further out into the rural areas through that kind of a program, while we can also go through and um, uh, give them additional funding to be able to be available more often. Because you call up a city fire department, you get a response in 3 to 5 minutes. You call up a rural fire department, depending on where you are and what their staffing is like, they have to respond to
Yeah.
their station, grab their equipment, go. You could wait 20 minutes for a response or
Yeah.
more. So so there's a lot we need to do to continue to fund a lot of those resources.
Yeah. Well, the last question on the issues would be about civil liberties and
Mhm.
constitutional rights, all these social issues.
Mhm. Well, and we've actually not done very well in terms of supporting a lot of constitutional rights for a lot of our folks.
Yeah,
And it's interesting because the Democrat point of view is that those are paramount, that those are absolutely something they protect and they believe the Republicans are going after. Well, what's in fact the case is that the Democrats have taken away a lot of those personal liberties. They've continued to
yeah,
add more and more regulations. They've continued to hamper free speech. They've continued to do a lot of things to undo things that are actually enshrined in both the U.S. Constitution and the Colorado Constitution.
yeah,
And we need to get back to that. And we have a lot of cases right now where laws are being circumvented. They're being avoided because they can. And when you have the
yeah,
judiciary and you have the legislature and you have the governor's office, all of a sudden it becomes very apparent that things that should be prosecuted are just ignored because it's all the same
yeah,
party. And that's become a bit of a problem both nationally and even within the state of Colorado. Um, so as a result, we have an awful lot of work that we need to do to go through and start guaranteeing again that people's rights are upheld. And
yeah,
now we are not very good at observing and taking care of all of our different groups out there, whether they be a white or Hispanic or Black or Asian, from a race perspective, and also from an LGBTQ perspective. We don't necessarily um, uh, give those groups all the rights that they should have. And
yeah,
um, over time, we're getting better about that. But quite frankly, the Republicans are the ones that have come in and put a lot of those rights back in place. That were they were talked about by the other by the Democrat Party, but then once they're elected, they don't do anything.
yeah.
So that's become a bit of a problem.
All right. Well, in terms of the election, I think you're not running anymore, I guess.
Right. I'm not running anymore,
Yeah.
although
You're not on the ballot, right?
I'm not on the ballot. And but now the other campaigns that are still remaining are talking to me about whether or not I want to
Yeah.
continue supporting them because we still have lieutenant governor to fill. We still have all the different state agencies to have new leadership in. So my options are actually a little more open now than they were before. So.
Are you going to run for any other office, or maybe you're going to try and wait for the next governor election?
I'm not planning on running for any other office, but if one of the candidates, there's a couple candidates that I would consider potentially running as their running mate for a lieutenant position, or at least serving in their administration, because there's so much work that we need to do,
Yeah.
and investment and energy and there's so many things that need to have happen in digital technology within the states. That if I can assist in any of those, ironically, all of those positions pay more than the governor and lieutenant governor pay. So yeah, it's kind of it's
That's
funny.
better.
Yeah, it's funny how the government the top end of the government always makes the least amount of money. It's kind of the
Yeah.
funny irony of all of the elected people. But anyway, so I don't really I'm near enough to retirement that I don't really care as much about the money as I do about I just want to get the problems fixed because um, if you look at 20 at the year 2000 to now, that's a
Yeah.
quarter century. What's changed in a quarter century? Have things gotten worse or things gotten better? And so when I look at that now and say, what's the next quarter century up to 2050 look like? I'm not going to be working, but my kids will be, and they'll be running everything. What's the world look like in 2050? And that's the decisions that we make now. And
Yeah.
that's where I want to have an impact.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for answering all my questions.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you do with your information then? Are you in university or you just do some analysis work or What types of things do
Yeah,
you do?
more like an independent analyst, and
You know?
I normally publish all my interviews on YouTube, if
Okay.
that's okay.
No, it's fine. Absolutely. Absolutely. All righty.
Well, you have a nice day.
You too, Lorena. It was good talking with you. Good to meet you, and enjoy the
Same
springtime
here.
weather.
You
Okay.
too.
Okay. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.